Welcome back. My name is Jason, and today I'm going to be talking about Artemis Fowl. I read this book several years ago. I have since read several others in the Artemis Fowl series. This definitely does over the arc of the series. It does consist of the hero's journey, which makes it quite interesting as far as narrative and storytelling goes. Anyway, Artemis Fowl by Eoin Colfer is the first book in the Artemis Fowl series, and it's actually being made into a movie for release sometime this year, if I remember right. Artemis is 12 years old, and he is a criminal genius. Self-styled criminal genius. Genius nonetheless, but the Fowl family has, for time out of mind, been a family of criminals. They've raised their fortune and they're elevated their status through criminal enterprise. And Artemis is proud of this fact and wants to continue in the same vein. However, his father, Artemis Fowl Sr., has disappeared, presumed lost. His mother is mentally unstable at this point, and he lives with his bodyguard Butler and Butler's sister Julia. Julia is training to be a bodyguard like her older brother Butler, and they live in Fowl Manor, which has seen better days, partially because of Artemis's father. He was on a venture, he got lost, and their fortune went kind of with him, and so they're at a low point in their lives. And so Artemis's purpose at this point in his life is to get the family back on track, reestablish the family fortune, and he has the brain power to do it, and through Butler, the muscle. So what he does, you see that little glowing book in his hand, he figures that there is some truth to the legends of fairies and leprechauns and that kind of stuff. And he goes out searching for it. And he ends up finding what he's looking for. He finds a fairy who has kind of been kicked out of fairyland, if you'll, from a certain perspective, and takes the time to make a deal with her that she will allow him to look at the fairy book. Basically, it's kind of their instruction manual, if you will, and the idea being that he will get their secrets through this book, and she won't let him have it, but she will let him look at it. In return, he will basically cure her. She has an addiction to alcohol, and until that's cured, she can't return to fairyland. So he makes the deal. He gets a look at the book and starts decoding it. In the meantime, we meet Holly Short. She is an officer in the LEP Recon, which, if you look at the way it's actually written, is Leprechaun, or LEP Recon. It stands for Lower Elements Police Recon. Her job is to police the where the fairies live and keep fictional beings, trolls and such, from having contact with the surface world. She has the need to recharge her magic powers, and in the process of recharging her magic powers, she's captured by Artemis, and Artemis then reveals himself to the fairy folk and puts into motion his plan to reestablish the Fowl family fortune. It's very interesting the way that Fowl goes about making sure that his family fortune gets reestablished, and the lengths that he'll go through, and the plans that he's put in place. He is a villain, but he's a sympathetic villain. He is not one of the ones that sits there and is needlessly cruel, for instance, or is gloating, if you will. He knows he's a genius, but he doesn't necessarily look down on other people because they can't match him. He does have a tendency to use people because that's kind of his personality, but he doesn't use them and toss them aside. For instance, Butler. He understands Butler's strengths and weaknesses and plans accordingly, and appreciates Butler for the skills that he brings to the table. So, like I said, this is going to be interesting. Disney has been making the Artemis Fowl movie, and it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves and whether or not they do a good job adapting it to adapting the book to the movie format. There is some things that get lost in translation and whatnot, and this is the new movie is probably going to rely pretty heavily on CG effects, just for the fact that, say, Holly Short happens to be a fairy, and she's shorter than Artemis, who is a 12-year-old boy. And so we're gonna see some of that forced perspective, maybe, but as there is magic as well involved in Artemis Fowl and his interactions with the fairies. Obviously, we're going to see some special effects. So it'll be interesting to see that how well the adaptation goes. Personally, I've been kind of disappointed with a lot of the adaptations of books to films that I've seen recently. Anyway, great series. It is for a younger audience, teenage, that area, young adult, teenager, that kind of area. But it's still a very good series, still highly entertaining for adults. And seeing the changes, because Artemis doesn't, Eoin Colfer doesn't pigeonhole Artemis, in my opinion. He doesn't stick him in there and say, okay, he's a 12-year-old boy forever. You actually, through the course of the series, get to see Artemis as he grows up and learns more, and how he interacts with the world of fairy now that he knows it's there and they know that he knows. So, very good series. Looking forward to more books in the series. And until next time, like and subscribe, and let me know any questions and comments that you have. And hopefully, here's looking forward to a good movie.